A grandmother was handcuffed at JFK Airport last month. Her crime? Carrying something in her purse that's been legal for decades. TSA didn't just confiscate it, they called police. She missed her flight, spent 6 hours in custody, and now faces a $2,500 fine. And the item? It's probably in your bag right now. There are 10 everyday objects that can get you fined or arrested in 2025. The rules changed quietly, and travelers are finding out the hard way. By the end of this video, you'll know which common item just got reclassified as a weapon by TSA, why another one that's sold in every airport gift shop can now land you in federal custody, and which item at number 1 has already resulted in 847 arrests this year, despite being completely legal to own. 3 of these items are in most carry-ons right now, and the consequences? They're not just confiscation anymore. They're criminal charges that follow you forever. Item number 10. Replica firearms. Let's start with the one that seems obvious but catches people constantly. Replica firearms, toy guns, airsoft pistols, prop weapons for cosplay, even realistic-looking lighters shaped like handguns. TSA treats them exactly like real firearms, and in 2025 the penalties got severe. But here's the twist. You might think TSA would just confiscate a toy gun and let you go. Not anymore. Under new federal guidelines, carrying a replica firearm through security triggers an automatic law enforcement response. Minimum fine? $1,500. A father in Orlando packed a toy Nerf gun in his son's backpack. Forgot to remove it before the airport. TSA flagged it during screening. They called airport police. He was detained for 3 hours, missed his flight, paid a $1,500 fine, and now has a TSA incident on his permanent record. What no one expected was how broadly TSA defines replica. A keychain that looks like a tiny gun? Replica. A belt buckle shaped like a revolver? Replica. A phone case designed to look like a pistol grip? Replica. But here's where it gets controversial. TSA agents have discretion in what they consider realistic. One agent might see a bright orange toy and wave it through. Another might classify it as a replica and trigger a response. A collector traveling to a convention had a vintage Star Wars blaster prop confiscated. Clearly plastic, clearly fictional, didn't resemble any real weapon. TSA didn't care. $2,100 fine, no appeal granted. And this changes everything for cosplayers and convention attendees. Item number 9. Pepper spray and self-defense items. Now let's talk about what just became a felony in some states. Pepper spray, mace, stun guns, tasers, personal safety keychains with spikes, even loud personal alarms. All banned in carry-on luggage. And the 2025 enforcement is ruthless. But here's what's catching people off guard. Many travelers carry pepper spray for personal safety. They forget it's in their purse. TSA finds it during screening. And the response is immediate escalation. A woman in Denver had a small pepper spray keychain in her purse. She'd carried it for years, completely forgot it was there. TSA found it. They detained her, called local police. She was cited for attempting to bring a weapon through security. $1,800 fine, 4-hour delay. What no one expected was how this extends to items marketed as legal self-defense tools. Those metal keychains shaped like cats with pointed ears? Banned as brass knuckles. Those tactical pens with glass breakers? Banned as weapons. But here's the kicker. Even items that are legal to own in your state can be illegal at the federal level. You can buy pepper spray legally in all 50 states. But you cannot fly with it in carry-on luggage. A college student in Boston had a personal alarm that also functioned as a stun gun. She didn't know about that feature. TSA classified it as a weapon. She was arrested, spent the night in jail. Her parents had to hire a lawyer. And this changes everything for travelers who prioritize personal safety. Item number 8. Marijuana products. Now, here's where federal and state law collide catastrophically. Marijuana, CBD products, vape cartridges, Edibles, legal in 24 states, completely illegal at the federal level, and airports are federal jurisdiction. A businessman in Las Vegas had a THC vape cartridge in his carry-on, legal in Nevada. He was connecting through Dallas. TSA found it, turned him over to DEA agents. He was arrested for drug possession. Federal charges. His lawyer cost $15,000. He lost his security clearance at work. But here's the twist that's catching even more people. CBD products that claim to be THC-free often aren't. Independent testing shows many contain trace amounts of THC, enough to trigger drug dogs. Enough to get you arrested, even though you thought you were following the law. A grandmother in Florida was flying home with CBD gummies for arthritis pain. Label said 0 THC. TSA dog alerted on her bag. They field tested the gummies. Positive for THC. She was detained. Questioned for hours. $500. Fine. What no one expected was how aggressively TSA is enforcing this in 2025. Previously, they often looked the other way. Not anymore. Zero tolerance. If it tests positive for THC, you're facing consequences. But here's where it gets absurd. Delta 8 THC products, sold legally nationwide, are treated the same as marijuana. They're hemp-derived, federally legal under the 2018 Farm Bill. But TSA doesn't differentiate, and this changes everything for medical marijuana patients. Item number 7. Lithium battery devices. Now let's talk about what's causing the most confiscations nationwide. External hard drives with built-in batteries, portable SSDs with embedded power, heated clothing with non-removable batteries, anything with a lithium battery that can't be easily removed. But here's where it gets complicated. The 2025 rules require that all lithium batteries in carry-on items must be removable or under 100 watt-hours. Most travelers don't know their device's watt-hour rating, and TSA expects you to know. A photographer in Seattle had a portable SSD confiscated. It had a built-in battery, 120 watt-hours. Over the limit, TSA took it. All his work from a 2-week assignment was on that drive. Gone. $8,000 worth of photos lost. What no one expected was how this affects common items. Those wireless charging phone cases. Many exceed the limit. Those heated jackets for skiing? If the battery isn't removable, they're banned. But here's the kicker. The enforcement is wildly inconsistent. Some TSA agents check every device. Others don't know the rule exists. A businessman in Chicago had his smart luggage battery confiscated on a return flight. Same bag he'd flown out with 3 days earlier. Different airport. Different outcome. He argued he'd just been cleared. Didn't matter. Battery confiscated. And this changes everything for tech-dependent travelers. Item number 6. Liquid medications without documentation. Now, here's what's targeting medical travelers specifically. Liquid medications over 3.4 ounces. Injectable medications like insulin. Prescription cough syrup. The 2025 rules require specific documentation that most doctors don't provide. But here's the twist. You need a signed letter from a physician, not just a prescription bottle. A formal letter stating your name, the medication name, and dosage. Without it, TSA can confiscate your medication. A diabetic man in Phoenix had his insulin confiscated. He had the prescription bottles. He had his medical ID bracelet. TSA said without the letter, they couldn't verify it. They confiscated $600 worth of insulin. He missed his flight, trying to get emergency replacements. What no one expected was how this affects children's medicine. Parents flying with kids bring liquid Tylenol or Benadryl. If the bottle exceeds 3.4 ounces and you don't have documentation, it's confiscated. A mother in Atlanta had her daughter's prescription antibiotic confiscated. The bottle was 6 ounces. She had the prescription label. TSA said she needed a doctor's letter. She had to buy replacement medication at airport prices. But here's where it gets worse. The documentation requirement isn't consistently enforced. Some airports demand it, others don't. You can't predict which until you're in line, and this changes everything for travelers with chronic conditions. Item number 5. Smart water bottles. Now let's talk about what seems completely innocent but is getting people detained. Smart water bottles, bottles with UV sterilization, bottles with Bluetooth speakers, bottles with LED displays, anything that's more than just a container. But here's what's catching travelers off guard. TSA is flagging any water bottle with technology or hidden features because smugglers have used similar items to hide contraband. A fitness enthusiast in Los Angeles had an expensive smart water bottle confiscated. It had UV sterilization and Bluetooth. TSA said the hidden battery compartment was suspicious. They took it apart, destroyed it in the process. No compensation. What no one expected was how this extends to insulated bottles. Double-walled bottles like Hydro Flask are being flagged because the hollow walls could hide items. A traveler in Miami had her Hydro Flask flagged. TSA couldn't verify it was just water and insulation. They disassembled it, found nothing. But the bottle was damaged. She asked for compensation. TSA said they're not liable. But here's the kicker. Even empty smart bottles are being confiscated. A woman in New York had an empty UV sterilization bottle. TSA still flagged it because the electronic components made it look suspicious. And this changes everything for health-conscious travelers. Item number 4. Common tools. Now here's what's getting everyday carriers arrested. Multi-tools, Swiss Army knives, pocket knives of any size, screwdrivers longer than 7 inches, even nail clippers with fold-out files. Items that used to result in simple confiscation now trigger criminal penalties. But here's the twist. In 2025, TSA updated enforcement guidelines. Carrying a blade through security, even accidentally, is now treated as a potential threat. Minimum fine, $1,000, and if the blade is over 3 inches, you can be arrested. A contractor in Houston forgot he had a small pocket knife in his laptop bag. TSA found it, called police. He was detained, charged with attempting to bring a weapon through security. He explained it was an accident. They said intent doesn't matter. $2,800 fine. What no one expected was how this affects tools that aren't obviously weapons. Those tiny screwdriver sets for eyeglasses. If they're too long, they're banned. Those metal nail files. Classified as blades. A businessman in Dallas had a keychain multi-tool he'd carried for years, less than 2 inches long. TSA classified it as a weapon, $1,200 fine. He argued the blade was barely sharp. They said size and sharpness don't matter. And this changes everything for people who carry practical items. Item number 3, spreadable foods. Now let's talk about what's causing thousands of confiscations monthly. Peanut butter, Nutella, hummus, salsa, jam, honey. Any food that spreads or flows. TSA classifies these as liquids. And in 2025, they're enforcing it aggressively. But here's what travelers don't understand. The 3.4-ounce rule applies to food. If your jar of peanut butter is 16 ounces, it's illegal in carry-on. And if you argue or refuse to surrender it, you can be fined. A woman in Boston was bringing homemade jam to her sister. 4 jars, 8 ounces each. TSA flagged them. She refused to throw them away. She'd spent hours making them. She was fined $8 for refusing to comply. What no one expected was how this affects cheese. Soft cheese is considered spreadable, therefore liquid. But TSA agents decide what qualifies as soft versus hard. A couple returning from Paris had expensive French cheese confiscated. $120 worth of artisanal soft cheese. They argued cheese is solid. TSA said if it spreads, it's liquid. But here's the kicker. The enforcement varies wildly by airport. Some are strict, some aren't. You could fly out with peanut butter and get stopped on the return. And this changes everything for travelers who pack food. But the final two items on this list are causing the most arrests. One is completely legal to own. It's sold in stores nationwide. And it's already resulted in 847 arrests this year alone. TSA won't announce it publicly, but internal memos show they're targeting these specific items at every checkpoint. The top two items expose how TSA can arrest you for something that's not illegal. And once you see what they are, you'll never pack the same way again. Item number 2. Power banks over the limit. Now let's talk about what's catching the most tech travelers. Power banks over 100 watt-hours, spare lithium batteries, camera batteries not in proper packaging. All can result in fines or arrest in 2025. But here's the twist that's shocking travelers. Most power banks don't clearly display watt-hours. TSA agents calculate the conversion. If they determine your power bank exceeds the limit, it's confiscated. And if they believe you deliberately tried to hide the rating, you can be fined. A photographer in Portland had a 150 watt-hour battery pack. This time, a TSA agent actually calculated the rating. It exceeded the limit. He was fined $1,500 for attempting to bring prohibited items through security. What no one expected was how damaged batteries are treated. If your phone battery is swollen, TSA can detain you. Damaged lithium batteries are considered hazardous materials. A student in San Francisco had an old laptop with a swollen battery. She didn't notice. TSA did. They called hazmat response. She was questioned for 2 hours. Fined $2,000 for attempting to transport hazardous materials. But here's where it gets absurd. Spare batteries must be in original packaging or have terminals taped. A videographer had 6 camera batteries in a Ziploc bag. TSA confiscated all of them. He needed them for a paid shoot. He missed his job. Lost $3,000 in income. And this changes everything for anyone who travels with electronics. Item number 1. Empty containers with residue. The number 1 item getting people arrested is this. Empty containers with residue. Water bottles that had something other than water. Shampoo bottles that still smell. Food containers with traces. Anything that tests positive for trace amounts of substances. But here's the twist that's causing chaos. TSA uses advanced detection technology. Swabs that test for explosive residue. Dogs trained to detect drugs. They're finding trace amounts in containers travelers thought were clean. A woman in Tampa was arrested because her empty water bottle tested positive for explosive residue. She'd never had explosives, but she'd set the bottle down at a firing range weeks earlier. Gunpowder residue transferred. She was detained for 8 hours. FBI questioned her. Eventually, cleared, but she missed her vacation. What no one expected was how this targets innocent people. A teacher in Phoenix had an empty pill bottle she used for vitamins. There was powder residue inside. TSA tested it. Field test showed positive for methamphetamine. She was arrested, held for 12 hours. Lab results came back negative, but she'd already missed her sister's wedding. But here's the kicker. Even legal substances cause problems. A man had an empty protein powder container. The residue tested positive on initial screening. They detained him, questioned him about steroid use, eventually cleared. But 4-hour delay and public humiliation. A mother traveling with her baby had an empty baby bottle with milk residue. It flagged TSA's scanner as suspicious. They swabbed it, tested it, questioned her extensively. She was traveling alone with an infant. The entire process took 90 minutes while her baby cried. But here's what's really happening. TSA technology is so sensitive it detects trace amounts of substances. But field tests have high false positive rates. You can be detained for hours based on a test that's later proven wrong. The number 1 item isn't really about empty containers. It's about how TSA's enforcement in 2025 has become so strict that innocent travelers are being treated as criminals. The technology catches everything. The rules allow no discretion. And travelers are paying the price with fines, arrests, and criminal records for items they didn't even know were problematic. 10 items. Thousands of arrests. And most travelers have no idea these rules exist until they're already in handcuffs. TSA changed enforcement in 2025 without public announcement. The fines increased. The tolerance disappeared, and innocent mistakes now result in criminal charges. If you're flying this year, check your carry-on against these 10 items before you leave home, because what used to mean confiscation now means arrest. Hit that like button if this saved you from a TSA nightmare, and subscribe because we're exposing travel rules the government isn't telling you about.